What do you think when you hear the word human? Do you picture a person? What about this? What if humanity could be broken down into its fundamental components? Flesh, bone, and spirit. This is the foundation of Land of the Lustrous, a Japanese manga created by Haruko Ichikawa. Known for its striking artwork, intricate world building, and philosophical depth, the series challenges our understanding of what it means to be human. Through its unique portrayal of identity, suffering, and transformation, Land of the Lustrous does not merely depict humanity. It dissects it, reshapes it, and questions its very nature. By exploring the struggles of Phos and the three distinct species that inhabit this world, we can uncover how the series portrays humanity, not just as a biological concept, but as an existential journey. Land of the Lustrous takes place in a distant future where Earth has been devastated by 6 meteorite impacts, leaving only a single coastline and wiping out nearly all life. Over time, a new race of immortal gem-based humanoids called the Lustrous emerges. Phosphophyllite, or Phos for short, fragile and deemed useless in battle, is assigned to compile a natural history encyclopedia. As Phos grows, he becomes increasingly suspicious of his teacher, and slowly attempts to learn more about him, the Lunarians, and the world they live in. Throughout Land of the Lustrous, the concept of humanity is explored through suffering, transformation, and ultimately acceptance. While the series is rich with Buddhist symbolism, visually represented by Congo's robes, there has always been the underlying theme of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths can be used as a framework on what it means to be human. The Four Noble Truths state that life is suffering, suffering is caused by desire, suffering can end, and there is a path that leads to the end of suffering. At the core of the story is the idea that suffering stems from desire. Phos at the start is defined by his yearning for purpose, struggling with his feelings of inadequacy and uselessness. This longing drives him forward, but in doing so, he loses pieces of himself, literally and figuratively, becoming a fragmented, imperfect being. With each transformation, Phos drifts further from his original self, mirroring how human desires often lead to unintended consequences, conflict, and suffering. Phos's journey parallels real-world human struggles. Humanity, too, is driven by desire, whether it be for power, recognition, or fulfillment. And when these desires are unmet, conflict arises. Phos's own path escalates from personal suffering to full-scale war, mirroring historical cycles of human strife, driven by ambition and loss. However, the true turning point isn't from conquest, but through solitude. When left alone for 10,000 years, Phos reaches a state of acceptance, realizing he was always alone. In this moment, he transcends grief and anger, no longer clinging to his desire. However, in the final chapter, his journey repeats. His human nature reveals itself again in his desire for companionship and his suffering of regret. The story's deep ties to Buddhist teachings are no coincidence. Ichikawa herself has spoken about her inspiration from Buddhist sutras, particularly the line, "The pure land is made of jewels." So from a religious point of view, suffering is a key aspect of what humanity experiences. It portrays how suffering shapes identity, how desire can lead to destruction, and how, in the end, acceptance is the only true form of peace. The concept of becoming human is a driving force in the story, but the question, what makes us human, is actually quite difficult to answer. The dictionary may define humans as a human being, but philosophical interpretations offer more depth. Perhaps to be human is to question our existence, to seek meaning, or to suffer and grow from experience. Aristotle's philosophy provides one of the most compelling answers. He didn't explicitly call humans rational animals, but he did argue that rationality is humanity's key distinguishing trait. However, Aristotle also emphasized that humans are not solely rational. They're driven by emotions, instincts, and social influences. Unlike animals that act purely on instinct, humans balance reason and irrationality, allowing them to reflect, question, and evolve. Phos's transformation aligns with this perspective. At the start, Phos is childlike, ignorant, and unquestioning, much like human children. However, once he receives Lapis Lazuli's head, something shifts. Lapis, who was known for their curiosity and intelligence, influences Phos to question his world. Slowly, Foss begins making decisions based on emotion, external influences, and growing discontent. As his understanding expands, so does his suffering. Beyond Foss's personal transformation, Land of the Lustrous examines humanity by breaking it into 3 symbolic parts: the bones of humanity. The Lustrous are immortal and practical, existing only to protect themselves. They lack deep desires, ambition, or indulgence. Their structured, utilitarian way of life stands in contrast to human impulsiveness. They act more as vessels in which knowledge and influence can create the identity of a human, the flesh of humanity. The Admirabilis are mortal, capable of reproduction, and require sustenance. They suffer famine and near extinction, finding meaning in their mortality. Unlike the Lustrous, they experience life in a way that closely mirrors human existence. The soul of humanity. The Lunarians are trapped human souls, forced to live on even after their bodies disappeared. Their desire to regain flesh and bone represent the eternal human struggle for fulfillment. Despite their suffering, they indulge in aesthetics, culture, and pleasure, resembling human civilization the most. These 3 groups suggest that humanity is not defined by a single trait, but rather by the interplay of life, suffering, and community. To be human is to live, to desire, to suffer, and to search for meaning, whether through rational thought, indulgence, or spirituality. Manga is a unique medium that allows for both visual and textual storytelling, offering insight into a character's emotions beyond what words alone can convey. Haruko Ichikawa's background in graphic design at Hokkaido University is evident in the way Land of the Lustrous uses composition, silhouettes, and symmetry to shape the reader's perception of the characters and their emotions. One of the most striking artistic choices in the manga is the use of negative space. This technique has a myriad of meanings. Loneliness. The emptiness of certain panels highlights isolation, mirroring Foss's increasing detachment. Uneasiness. Asymmetry and unsettling compositions create tension, reflecting internal conflict. Consequence. The weight of each panel visually conveys the gravity of Foss's actions. At the beginning of the story, the world is bright and full of detail, reflecting Foss's innocence. As Foss loses parts of himself, both physically and emotionally, the art becomes emptier, mirroring his diminishing sense of self. By the time Foss reaches the moon and learns the truth, darkness dominates the panels, visually illustrating his despair. The final chapters present the most powerful artistic moments in the series. After Foss has prayed the Lunarians into nothingness, he is left utterly alone in a vast, barren world. The next 3 pages are completely black, an overwhelming emptiness that signifies Foss's isolation and decision. He had sacrificed everything to become what others wanted, only to find that in doing so, he had erased himself. In the climax of the series, in which Foss is consumed by the exploding sun, the flames peel away his body. Each version of Foss that once existed is revealed. In this moment, the entirety of his journey is laid bare. Each experience, each loss, and each change culminating in a final acceptance. Despite becoming something unrecognizable, every part of his past remains within him. This could signify that even through change, one is still themselves. Land of the Lustrous does not provide a singular definition of humanity, but rather deconstructs it through multiple lenses: philosophical, religious, and artistic. Foss's journey follows the Buddhist path of suffering from his desire for more. Aristotle's perspective on humanity as a balance between rationality and emotion is reflected in Foss's transformations. The manga's art style visually captures the emotional depth of the human experience: joy, sorrow, struggle, and ultimately acceptance. In the end, Land of the Lustrous does not just tell a story about humanity, it becomes a reflection of it.